Hey guys, the Explorer of Horror here, the Horror Boy. Welcome back to some more reviews. And of course, I had talked about the first Planet of the Apes movie, did a review on it. It was a film that I really honestly didn't expect to like because the idea of Planet of the Apes I always thought sounded a little bit like goofy on paper. But a lot of movies sound goofy on paper until they're done very well. And then this example, I think, the first Planet of the Apes is just such a great classic movie. I really, really enjoyed the first movie. And since I covered the first movie, I wanted to talk about the sequels as well, because I've been going through and watching the sequels, and once again, just being blown away by some of the sequels. But today's review is going to be on a very interesting sequel, and that is the first sequel in the Planet of the Apes franchise. Is number two. It's part two. That is Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Now, this film came out in 1970, gets a 6.1 on IMDb, directed by Ted Post. Now, this is a movie that, I'd always heard about, and it's kind of like infamous as being one of those sequels that's really not given the best reviews. And it's considered to be one of the worst sequels out there. It's considered to be one of the worst movies out there. And, I'd kind of heard about that before I checked the movie out, so I was definitely bracing myself for this film. To get into the movie, though, real quick, just to get into the plot, you have it taking place right after part one. You know, you have Charlton Heston's character, Taylor, and as well as Linda Harrison's character, Nova. They're kind of continuing, trying to figure out what the next step is, and they are journeying further into the Forbidden Zone, and before they know it, there's fire everywhere, the ground begins to break, and weird things start happening, and what it ultimately leads to is Taylor's character falling into this mountain or into this rock and disappearing, and even that disappears. And so Nova's really confused by this, trying to figure out what's going on. She gets away from the area. Meanwhile, you have another ship crashing on the same planet as Taylor's crew did. And only one survivor is left, though, and that is Brent, who is sort of our new lead, taking over the Taylor spot, played by James Franciscus. And basically, he goes through some of the same stuff that the first movie's character did, Taylor. You know, he finds out that the planet has a bunch of apes on it. There's a village with apes. Finds out how everything works. And also finds out about Nova, and finds out that there is this underground city beneath the Planet of the Apes. And so he begins to make his way down there, and he finds out that, of course, this is Earth. So kind of going to the same beats as the first movie at this point. And they discover that there are these sort of mutant people underground, and they have powers, and they use illusions to confuse people. They have mind-controlling powers. And, that's the gist of the plot. They meet these people underground. Meanwhile, with the apes, there is this war brewing where they're going to go farther into the Forbidden Zone. And, you know, you have a couple new characters in this movie. And to get into this movie, though, I don't hate this movie, first of all. I think it's actually a pretty decent movie. It's definitely down there with, probably one of my least favorites. But I wouldn't say this is, one of the worst sequels of all time or one of the worst movies of all time. I think the problem with the movie is that while I respect it being different, I think the different part doesn't really fit this movie. And I like the idea of it being different. I like the idea of the mutant humans. I like the idea of them going beneath the Planet of the Apes. I love the set design and the environment of the city. I love the ideas, but when you really get into this movie, the Planet of the Apes stuff, when it gets to the third act of this movie, takes a back step. Like they're in the background. And this new stuff is being put in the foreground. And it comes out of nowhere. And I feel like that's what really is the biggest issue with this movie. And also, the clear drop in quality from the first movie. Whereas in the first movie, to me, not really much of anything stuck out as not aging very good or looking low budget or, that doesn't hold up, or maybe this effect doesn't hold up. I didn't notice that a whole lot in the first movie. I was very impressed with the first movie. Just the way it was shot, the environments, the set design, the costumes and makeup effects and all the special effects they had, the music, the ideas of the movie, Charlton Heston as the lead. Whereas in this movie, there are things that stick out. First of all, Roddy McDowall did not come back in this movie to play Cornelius. And when I first watched this movie, I thought he was still in the movie because the guy who played Cornelius sounds just like Roddy McDowall. But the makeup looks completely different in this movie. Like, he looks nothing like Roddy McDowall in the makeup. And I was sitting there wondering, like, okay, why does the makeup look like that? And yeah, it's a different person playing Cornelius. Doesn't do a very bad job acting-wise. As a matter of fact, he nails the voice. But just was a really weird thing where I'm like, that doesn't really look like Roddy McDowall, but it sounds just like him. So I thought it was him. I just thought it was the makeup. But that's really weird because this is the only movie in the original series he wasn't in. Also, the makeup on the apes in this movie, very, very interesting because there are scenes where Zira and Cornelius are in a crowd of apes and they are clearly the only ones with makeup effects on, whereas the others have like pullover masks. And I think it really sticks out in this movie. Now, they would go on to use that because of the low budget in the fourth movie, Conquest, for the Planet of the Apes. But I thought it worked a lot better in that movie because of the dark environments and not using a lot of lighting. So you really don't notice it too bad in that movie. But yeah, that really stuck out to me. A lot of the special effects stick out to me. The fire effects, the lightning. I appreciate the ambitiousness of this movie. But a lot of it really sticks out to where you're like, wow, this is just a drastically different movie than the first film. And it does feel like it comes out of nowhere. And I feel like at times it loses track of where it's going. Because you have this plot where this new character, Brent, crashes down, meets Nova. They go through the same beach as the first movie. They get captured. They get experimented on a little bit. Zira helps them out. He gets everything explained to him. He escapes and journeys underground to where the mutants are. And up to that point, it's feeling like, okay, this is not bad, but it was going through the similar thing. Then when it gets to the underground part, it's just completely out of left field. It's like, oh, there are these mutants down there. But not only are they mutants, they have powers. And not only do they have power, so they can use illusions. They can mind control. And it's like, what? And it is a very drastically different idea for a Planet of the Apes movie. And part of me can respect it, but part of me wonders if it really fit this franchise. So I guess I want to get the negatives out of the way because I don't hate this movie. I want to get into the positives last, but I want to just get the bad things out of the way. Some of the special effects don't hold up. Certain scenes, just the way they look, is a lot more gray and dull compared to the first movie. The first movie had a very just bright and colorful environment, and everything just had a life to it, and everything just kind of flowed, and it just had an energy to it that made it feel like this giant adventure. There are some good-looking scenes in this movie. There are some good-looking shots, but there are also some shots that are really just gray and just not much really going on as far as the scene and the cinematography and everything. There are a few scenes like that. A lot of the special effects, some of them, they don't age very great. Um, the plot, I thought the plot was something that was really interesting because they're building up that there's this guy who's leading the guerrillas. They're gonna go to the Forbidden Zone, even though they're not supposed to. And it's kind of hard to follow that part because you're wondering, okay, what's making them want to go to the Forbidden Zone? Like, they don't know about the mutants underground. Like, there's no mention of that in the movie, at least one that I had picked up on. So they make it seem like they're going to go to the Forbidden Zone for no reason. Then somehow they find out about the mutants underground. And somehow by the end of the movie, not only do you have Taylor coming back into the story, but you have Brent there fighting Taylor. Somehow the apes know about the underground part of the Earth. So they go down there and start killing everybody, killing all the mutants. The mutants are worshipping this nuclear bomb. And so they're trying to do the whole religion thing again in this movie. Which I didn't hate that idea, but it was just like... The ending, I think, is what really shakes this movie up. Where you're like, okay, what? Like... Because at first it's like, okay, very straightforward. What, another human who looks just like Charlton Heston. Which I remember when I seen the trailer for this movie, I thought it was Charlton Heston for the longest time. But no, it's a different person. It's because... I don't really think Charlton Heston wanted to do this movie. He had a couple conditions that he wanted in this contract to do this movie, or the deal he made. I know that he wanted to get the character killed off. Taylor, he wanted to kill off. And he wanted to donate his pay to charity, I think. And there are some scenes in this movie where you can kind of tell he doesn't want to be in the movie, or maybe... Because, like... He's even got different clothes on than the first movie. Like, it's just like... There are some scenes where you can kind of tell it's like, okay, maybe he didn't quite want to be there at that time. Well, this movie was made like 2 years later, so it wasn't like it was immediately after the first movie. But the ending just got crazy, because you have the apes going there, and then they're killing all of the mutants off. One of the mutants, I think... You think she's dead, or I think she actually is dead, like she killed herself or whatever. Then one mutant is like gonna set the bomb off, and Brent's character gets killed off out of nowhere. Charlton Heston's character gets killed off out of nowhere. The apes are just kind of there. They mess with the nuclear bomb, it explodes, and the movie kind of ends just like that. And it's just like, holy crap. Like, the movie's ending, definitely the roughest part of the movie, because it's like, okay, a lot of plot holes there. First of all, how do they know about the mutants? Why are they going to the Forbidden Zone when they have been told this whole time not to? A lot of the questions where I was like, okay, so there's a second ship following Taylor's ship that has a guy who looks pretty much just like Taylor? And somehow he's the lone survivor, but yet in the first movie there was like 4 survivors. Like, questions like that had me wondering, like, okay, and they don't really get answered in this movie. But to get all that out of the way, to get to the positives, because it's not a bad movie to me. What makes this movie great, or not really great, I wouldn't say it's a great movie. What makes it a decent, passable movie for me is... Number one, I once again thought that I respect the fact they're being different with the movie, how ambitious it is. I like how it's going a completely different direction from the first movie. I respect that. I love the music. Some of the cinematography is on point. Some of the set design is on point. I enjoy the underground area. I enjoy the idea of the mutants. I enjoy the idea of the underground city and the matte paintings and the set design of that whole area. I got into the idea that there's kind of this tension in between the apes in this movie, and how there's this general who will, kidnap humans and use them basically as, human tests for like the training for the army and everything like that. I enjoyed just the differences in the movie, trying to be a little bit different than the first movie. But Yeah, I think it's not a bad movie. It's just like one of those films where it pales in comparison to the other movies in the series. It's just got a really out there plot. The third act is really, really rocky and has a lot of loose ends, basically. The movie ends very downbeat. To me, almost too downbeat. Like they're trying to top the first movie's ending. And overall, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. It's not terrible, not fantastic. There are certain aspects that I enjoyed about it, but yeah, overall, I can definitely see why this is one of those movies that, it doesn't really get the biggest fan base or really talked about that much. Just overall, very underwhelming sequel, and also just a vastly different film that sometimes I think strays away from Planet of the Apes rather than being a Planet of the Apes movie. And there are some things that are definitely ballsy in this movie. I want to mention one more positive first, because I just remembered this. I enjoyed the idea of the ballsiness of this movie, like of it taking chances. Like there's a scene where literally you have a bunch of gorillas crucified upside down in fire. And that scene like was jaw dropping. I was like, what the hell? Because this is still a G-rated movie. And you see that and you're like, holy crap. And of course it's all an illusion, it's not real, but it's still a very shocking scene because you're seeing a bunch of like hundreds of crucified upside down gorillas. I'm just like, holy shit, basically. There's a scene where the apes, I think these chimpanzees, they're doing a protest, peace, not war. And I love the shot of, them getting all of them out of the way, and the horses walk over all the peace signs and the signs on the road. That was definitely a very risky move to put that in the movie. And it was definitely like really interesting because of the time this movie was made, 1970. I mean, the fact they put that in there I thought was really interesting. But yeah, it's definitely a movie that takes a lot of risks. It's definitely different. It's definitely out there. But overall, for me, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. It's decent, but not the best follow-up to the first movie. But I don't hate it. It's just, compared to the other sequels, I enjoyed other ones definitely more. But this one's not bad. But anyways, thanks so much for checking out the video. Hope you guys enjoyed the review. How would you guys rate this movie? Definitely let me know your guys' thoughts on this film in the comments below. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the review, and I'll see you guys later. Explorer 4 is out. Peace!